Hello, my name is Robert and welcome to my adventure. Today, I'm a little bit further south than where I was last week. I'm still on the Kennebec River, oddly enough, but about 150 miles south on the Atlantic coast. And this is the Kennebec River. This is where it enters, come around here, the Atlantic Ocean. And it goes all the way from northern Maine down through where I was last week camping. I was swimming in it, to here where it joins the ocean. And part of the reason I came here today, besides the fact that it's beautiful weather and I hadn't got out on the bike yet this year, I'm fixing that today, is this behind me. Historic Fort Popham, one of the forts that guards the mouth of the Kennebec River. This fort was built to protect this river from the British, and then during the American Civil War from Confederate raiders, and then I believe it came all the way up into World War I as a submarine observation post, although by then it had really lost its relevance. But we'll get into that in a little bit. But it's a beautiful day for a ride, and this seemed like a great place to go, and I'm going swimming again because this water looks great. It's probably not super warm. My guess is mid to low 60s, but that's okay. When it's 90, that feels good. So let's go check out this fort. So the actual construction of Fort Popham began in 1862. The fort was, as I said, meant to protect the Kennebec River from threat. Stone was brought here by barge, unloaded across the courtyard onto a pier, and then carried over here on a small railroad where it was cut to shape, and then using derricks and hoists was put into position to create what you see here. The brick you see is also made locally here in Maine, along with the mortar. They would bring in the finished bricks, make the mortar on site, and they would build big forms along here, and they would lay the brick above it with the mortar between the joints, several courses deep, and then they would fill above it with aggregate and finally another layer of stone like you see here on the floor. And once that had all set up, they would remove the wooden arch that was a support for the construction, and then they would move it on to the next arch, and the next arch, and the next arch, and the next arch, and so on. Now in reality they had several arches going at once, but that's what they would do. They would leapfrog themselves all the way around the perimeter of the fort, and then once they finished the first level and they got the granite set upstairs, they would move everything up and then start building the next level. You can see here on the granite where the guides were for the guns that sat here. The guns were anchored into the wall, and then there was an iron strap, if you will, on the ground there and on the ground here, and there were iron rollers on the base of the gun carriages that would sit on those tracks, and they could traverse the guns left or right, and then they would do an elevation calculation. Those steel or iron doors, everything was iron then, those iron doors would be opened and they could fire out at the ships coming up through. And due to the tricky currents in this area, ships had to slow down and tack, and I don't pretend to be a sailor, but they had to slow down and maneuver. And because they had to do that right in front of this fort, it made them easy targets for the fort. So here's a good illustration of what the fort was supposed to look like. These staircases are a marvel of engineering, how they were able to lay them out so precisely to achieve this effect. It's fascinating. If you need to build a staircase that can withstand a bombardment, this is the way to do it. This landing takes you to the second level of the fort. Let's keep going. It continues on to what would have been the roof. Now this was never constructed, or never finished, I should say. They've got it all enclosed in so you can't get on the roof and people don't fall off, but it would have been another 10 or 12 feet higher with earthworks on top. My assumption is there would have been rifle pits up here for sharpshooters to be stationed and take pot shots at the sailors in the rigging of the ships while they tried to tack. So this is the second level of the fort. You can see the view is definitely better. The ocean is beautiful. You can also see the currents. There was such a problem for sailing ships, and even modern ships today, when they bring the destroyers down through here, they have to plan ahead and be very cautious as they come through. And the problem with this channel is it's not sandy. It's all rock. So if you ground even a tiny bit, you're going to take damage to your ship. So your goal was, while these ships were trying to navigate this current and make the turn into the river, to fire on them, damage them, sink them, or force them onto the rocks. In any event, they would not be able to get up the river. That's awesome. So here we can see the construction of the arches and how there are multiple courses of brick. Now this would be several courses thick, and then these top layers just kind of end. They would fill it in with aggregate and then lay the capstones over it to enclose it in so they could run the guns back there or run heavy carts with iron wheels across here carrying ammunition. So here's a good view of the parade ground where the troops would assemble. And then this would have been built out into barracks for the enlisted and the officers. The building obviously never got finished. There would have been a second level to it, and it would have come out to here, and there would have been rooms and fireplaces and so on. There are cisterns under the ground here, and I can't tell you exactly where they were or where they are. They're still here to store fresh water, but I don't know where the entrances are. And the Park Service wouldn't, exactly tell you. Okay, let's head down the other one of these beautifully made staircases. Getting busy. A lot of people visit this fort. They claim 100,000 people a year. And I believe them. It's always people here when I come. So these are rifle slits. You would have riflemen, and in this case, this one is a gun. So a much smaller gun, obviously, but you can see the track in the floor where it mounted to the wall. And this was so you could fire at people trying to breach the front. Now, this was originally to be a moat. It was supposed to be scoured out, and there would be a drawbridge on this side that the people in the fort could lower down. So in the event of attack, you would have water here and a bridge that would slow down your attackers while you're firing at them with medium artillery. Man, that'd be a rough day. And then you have the rifle slits where you would have riflemen with rifled muskets firing at you while you were making your landing and your assault. While no fortification is impregnable, this would be a rough day to take. I wouldn't want to have to storm it. So this is one of the magazines. This one is on the upper level. There would have been a heavy steel door here, or iron door, excuse me, and then a wooden door, and then a wooden floor in here. And this would have been filled with powder and the explosive shells that they would fire at those ships. You can see there are vents cut into the walls to allow cooling air to get in here, because again, you don't want your magazines to get too hot. It can break down the powder and bad things can happen, but you want them protected. So these are all through the fort on either extreme end. And the crews could send their runners back here to get the ammunition to feed the guns if they were in a battle. Now, this fort was never attacked, never saw combat, which is a good thing for the state of Maine and the people that had to man it. Would have made for more interesting history, but it's probably best it wasn't. More of the rear wall that would have been the back wall of the officers' quarters and probably enlisted barracks. And there's stones still sitting around that were meant to be hoisted in place. They were cut but never raised because they decided to stop. It wasn't worth it. This would have been an archway, door, and then that recess there is where the drawbridge, that recess, is where the drawbridge would have gone into if it had been built. This causeway I'm on, this dirt causeway, was actually part of the construction of the fort. It was here to give access while it was under construction. It would have been removed. And this moat, they call it, would have been dug deeper so that at least at high tide there would be water in it from the sea. And that out there, past that lighthouse that you probably can't see, is the Atlantic Ocean. And that's the channel you have to maneuver with your sailing ship while the fort is shooting at you. So the Army added to the fort without working on the main fort structure, which is over there. They added these in 1898 as part of the Spanish-American War because, again, the threat came back. The Spanish Navy could sail up here and attack Bath and Augusta. So they modernized, well, I shouldn't say modernized, not the right word. They put in modern batteries here. I can't tell you exactly what battery this was, what type of weapon. Same concept though. A center pin for the front of the gun carriage, and then tracks that the gun swiveled on to protect the river with modern guns. So the gun lived up there, and then this was the magazine for it. Again, you want your ammo protected and in a cool place. Somebody's had fun in here. Doesn't smell too good either. This would have been the outer magazine where the shells were kept, and then in there would have been where the powder charges were for the weapon. There would have been a wood floor here and probably wood doors. So that's Fort Popham. Hope you guys found it interesting. I really appreciate you coming along with me and checking it out. It's a neat spot. If you're in the area, it's worth the trip over here. The swimming is good. It's a beautiful place. There's a nice seafood restaurant about 400 yards that way that I think has a plate of fried scallops with my name on it. I gotta go investigate that. Meanwhile, after that's done, I'm gonna change up, ride back home, and I gotta meet up with the town. They want to change out my water meter, so it'll be good to get that crossed off the list of things I have to do. So with all that, I do gotta say that YouTuber stuff, please like, share, and subscribe this video. It means so much to me. You guys are killing it. I'm picking up subscribers, and I know it's a small thing for you to do, but it's a big thing to me. It's a real treat that I get to see that at least somebody finds this stuff interesting. So pretty cool. So with all that, my name is Robert, and this was my adventure.